Hello, everybody. I'm Jeff Brooks. I'm the leader of West Berkshire Council, and this is a new question and answer session called Ask the Leader. And I'm pleased to do this. We're going to do this every 2 to 3 months, because although there are ways of asking questions of the council within the council chamber, at council meetings, executive meetings, we thought we needed something perhaps less formal, and for people to be able to put questions to me, and for me to hopefully give them the straight answer as can be done within what sometimes are quite complex situations, and do that for the next hour. We got about 30 questions in ahead of tonight, but we're taking them online as well, and we'll see how we get on. What we've done is group them together because, as you might expect, there are a bunch of questions on highways, a bunch of questions on bins. That's perfectly reasonable, expected, and to be tackled and grasped by me in the next hour. And questions on local government reorganisation, where you may have heard of our initiative to perhaps form a new council with South Oxford and the Vale of Whitehorse. I've got Martin Dunscombe, our communications manager, here with me, and I may bring him into the conversation occasionally, because otherwise all you're doing is watching me for an hour. Which is not ideal. I don't think even my wife would want to do that for an hour these days. So why should you? So we'll break it up a little bit. But the first question, as I say, is a bunch of questions on the highways. And I'm going to read out who asked the question. I think Bethany, who's also helping, will then put it on the screen to show you what the question is. I'll do a little bit of introduction to the question. The nub of it, you know, the real question, or the essence of it, and then give an answer. There isn't an ability for you to come back and ask a sub question, although if Susan, who's the first one up, does want to ask a supplementary question, that can go in the chat. I can't promise to get round to it. So let's see how we go. It's the first one, and I'm sure plenty of people will tell me how we do. We've got Susan from Boxford. And she said the Valley Road from Boxford through to Speen is narrow with plenty of dangerous bends. And what she's essentially saying is HGVs should definitely be banned. Now, the formal answer, if you like, is that a review of the restrictions on the Valley Road from Boxford to Speen is scheduled to be considered in the 26-27 Highways Works programme and as a new project. So we've already corresponded with the councillors in that area and the parish council about what we can and can't do with regards to lining, signing on the B4000, and why there's an existing weight limit on the B4000 and not on Valley Road. So what I've done today is I've said to the Highways Department, well, look, it might be in the 26-27 Works programme as a new project, and that's a review of the restrictions. Can you bring it forward to the early part of that year? Because 27 will finish in March 2027, which seems a long way away, and is a long way away. So, Susan, I promise you that we'll see if we can bring that forward. And I promise you that Stuart Gawley, the executive member for Highways and the Environment, will be in touch with you. So I hope that's a holding position, but with some sense of commitment to see if we can do something more rapidly. Thank you for that. Our next one up is an anonymous question, and that's okay, but it is around how can the council propose e-scooters when they've been so dangerous and a disaster in London? Now, I'll be honest, I've not looked at the London experiment to know whether they're a disaster or not, but the questioner is effectively saying these aren't ideal. Now, our local transport plan, it does recognise and should that we have declared a climate emergency, and it must support our environment strategy. So that includes transport decarbonisation and the journey towards net zero, which we're doing pretty well on. We're moving towards your council being net zero in carbon by 2030. We've got some hurdles to overcome, but I think, and I've committed to get there. So a key measure of active travel is promoting active travel, which comprises walking and wheeling, cycling, and legal means of assisted cycling or wheeling. And at present, e-scooters are only legal if operating in a trial area or on private land with the owner's consent. We're not. West Berkshire is not in a trial area. So I really am aware of the safety concerns around e-scooters. We would only promote their use if they're legalised and within the requirements that might come with that. And only today I was reading in the newspaper that the government is looking at this and potentially looking at power restrictions, speed limiting, requirement for a provisional driving licence and or insurance. Those things are coming down the tracks. And it's unfortunate. I've seen plenty of these e-scooters on the streets where they shouldn't be. And I've seen the police going after certain e-scooter riders only in the last week. So there seems to be a bit of a clampdown on it. But I've also seen in certain cities them being used quite well, providing they don't go too fast, which is the thing that worries people. But we are not committed to do this. And it is unfortunate in local media, they sort of seem to lead with this item as if it were ready to be rolled out, scooted out. And that's not the current council policy. It will not be the policy. We need some clarity across the nation through legislation on how e-scooters will be used and can be made safe. You can go at a similar speed on a bicycle and be dangerous, but we're not saying we shouldn't do cycling. We need to put speed limiters or speed limits on e-scooters. I think they may well have a part to play in the future because, of course, they do cut down on congestion, carbon usage. But let's see what the government come up with. I hope that's helpful, but I will repeat, it's not part of our policy. It's in the local transport plan, depending on other things happening. Now, Gary in Newbury, why are you ignoring what the residents want? You've recently completed 2 consultations, bins and pedestrianisation, both of which results have been ignored and the council has done what it wanted. You also proposed to remove the cost of the green bins. So I'm going to cover bins separately, Gary. I'm picking up pedestrianisation here as a sort of pseudo highways matter. And what I will say about consultations, and I can see that people are discomforted, that the result of the consultation didn't immediately mean we did something that the consultation suggested or actually told us to do. And what I'm about to say now might not chime with people, but a consultation is not a referendum. Not everybody gets a vote. It is about saying, what's the public opinion on this? If we simply did everything that people said we should through a consultation, you could end up with a situation where somebody who's very good at sort of campaigning could get, say, 200 people to say, no, don't do it. And probably only 100, say, in my example here, come out and say, yes, that sounds a good idea. That 200 have been really chased to give an opinion. They may not be the majority opinion. They may be a highly vocal minority. And that wouldn't seem right to me to then say, okay, we're going to make a decision based on that. That's the danger. Consultation does other things, though. Consultation can flag up to us that, we need to think about things we may not have thought about. It's not simply a vote for or a vote against. And I will say, and it's a statement of fact, that over the last 2 years of setting budgets, my administration, this new one, consulted on at least 25 things we might have had to do to make the budget work. And we discounted about 20 odd of those and said, no, okay, there is public disquiet about those and we won't do them and we won't take them. And we're still concerned about some of the things we do, and I'll come back to that within resource centres that have been asked about, care homes. But we do listen. We do listen. We won't necessarily do a knee-jerk and agree with every consultation just because of the number of votes in one way or another. So, the ETRO, the Experimental Traffic Regulation Order, is in place. And we're in the ongoing formal engagement phase. So that's running for 6 months. We're about 2 months in. That runs until the 19th of November. And our consultation hub is conducting that. And residents can provide detailed feedback, reasons for supporting or rejecting the trial. This is, to me, a real consultation of seeing the pedestrianisation in action, experiencing it. Whether you think it's good or bad, we can now, rather than a theoretical pedestrianisation, what do people think, they can now say when they see it in action. And we get that detailed feedback. That will help us to understand and assess the potential impact of those changes and the impact it's having. Now, we aim to publish the results of that within 3 calendar months of its close. Now, it does form part of our strategy. It was something that we said we would do. There was a Newbury master plan, which involved a whole load of changes and improvements to the town centre, of which pedestrianisation was one. And so we're trialling it to say, could this work? The Newbury town centre of an evening really doesn't have much of in the way of an economy. This is to try and stimulate it. Now, on August the 11th, I think, Martin, we are going to have a gazebo.
August the 7th, Thursday, August the 7th.
It's Thursday, August the 7th. Thanks for putting me right, Martin. On August the 7th, we will have a gazebo in the town centre, Northbrook Street, for over 4 hours, talking to people and inviting people to give us their views. Take it to the streets. I'm also going to meet the businesses within the Business Improvement District, the BID. I think that might be on August the 11th, at a Talk of the Town event where the shopkeepers can come and give me their views. We are listening, but we felt we needed to do the trial and see whether it does help improve the economy. So we've got a couple of late night evenings, shopping evenings. Did one last week, I think, on the 7th, a couple of weeks ago, and another one coming up in August. So we're asking people to give it a try, and we are trying it. And I have said, and I'll say again now, if it doesn't work, if it hasn't worked, we will stop it. That's a commitment I've made more than once, but I don't think it's fair to stop it after 8 weeks when we've got the summer months ahead of us. And I'm hoping that helps regenerate a sort of nice atmosphere in that area. I'm seeing some of that in the marketplace at the moment, but give us your feedback, please. My next one is, why is speeding in Burfield Common? This is an anonymous question, but why is it ignored? Why has the council not implemented more traffic controls to curb this endemic speeding? And, you know, in my experience, most drivers do not speed. It is a very tiny minority who really do. And you wonder how we can get across to them to stop doing it without lots and lots of physical measures. But we've had recent correspondence with the parish council and residents along this section of the highway about what we can and can't do regarding speeding vehicles. So it's not an unknown issue, and we are looking at it. We've carried out speed surveys along Reading Road, and although there is the occasional speeding motorist, which you notice, of course, it seems from those surveys the speed limit is mainly complied with. And that's what I was saying earlier. A lot of people are good drivers and considerate drivers. We've suggested to Burfield Parish Council, they work with Thames Valley Police on a community speed watch scheme as a way to further identify where the police resources might need to be concentrated in order to deal with speeding motorists. Unfortunately, we've not received any feedback from Parish Council on this. I'm sure they will soon, but we don't necessarily believe at the moment that traffic calming is a solution. So we're not working on a scheme at the moment. And, you know, our view at the moment is a community speed watch, and then evidence of speeding, its location shared with the police for them to enforce. More enforcement rather than getting everybody to be affected by speed cushions or other measures. So it's on our radar, but it's not at the moment up for speed calming. Hope you're, you know, this is all used to you. I'm trying to take them head on. I'm trying to give straight answers. I'll always be told I didn't answer a question in the way sometimes people expected it, but we're doing our best. Question 5 is from Richard in Thatcham. What lessons have we learned from the roadworks debacle, he calls it, of recent weeks, where multiple major routes in Newbury faced closures during similar periods? So what made this worse was A34, M4, national roads, highways, that sort of hit us. Works on the M4 and A35 are not undertaken by West Berkshire. I think people will understand they're undertaken by government national highways. So when there are road or lane closures associated with the work that could impact traffic flow on our networks, as A4, A339, and being used as a diversion route, we review the request to make sure there are no clashes with our planned work on our network. If there are clashes, we ask them to propose alternative dates to avoid any conflicts. But sometimes they will find that they have to do emergency repairs, and suddenly that impacts. Any closures on their network are published through our communication team to residents by various forms, and we did with the M4 closures, and National Highways also do that too. Now, with a recent closure on the A4 at Speen, and that's part of a new residential development, about 100 houses up there who needed the utility connections, there was congestion at peak periods at the M4 junction 13, and the traffic signals were not programmed to cater for this volume of traffic. So we've learned that any diversion signs need to get motorists to come off the A34 before the motorway junction, using the local roads to the hotel and services, and therefore avoid the traffic signal controlled junction. Now look, you can tell I'm reading some of this, but I'm a driver too, and when I'm driving and I see a roadworks here, and the roadworks in an adjacent road which might be on the route, I get pretty grumpy. I come in here like a grump. But sometimes you've got a planned highways repair on one of our roads and an emergency that Southern Electric or gas company has to respond with straight away. They have the ability to come straight in and tell us, but we don't have the ability to say, no, it's not a convenient time for you to do that, because their point of view is it could be dangerous. So that's how you can get these clag ups, and we're all affected on them. We do a lot to try and avoid this happening, but emergency requests will take precedence. We'll continue, Richard, to work with National Highways. We'll continue to try and avoid this happening. And, you know, people will flag it up and tell us we need to get better. We know we're doing everything we reasonably can. That was 5 highways questions. Bethany, did any come in on the chat on highways that, because I won't come back to highways after this little interlude we've got now. Bethany doesn't seem to be able to see any.
There's nothing I could see now.
What I will say, and people scoff and they laugh and they chuckle, but it is true that our roads are in the top 25% of the country for the best condition. So when you go around a pothole, you're right to not be happy about that. But look at the moment, there is a big program going on across the road. You'll see much more resurfacing. I've insisted on more white lining, and Stuart Gawley and the team are doing really well on this, much more white lining. So, you know, lines get rubbed off over months and years. We're catching up with that. Even if the road isn't being resurfaced, get the white lines there. We put in a program of cleaning road signs because they were in a terrible state, and that's an ongoing program. Now you can't just go up with a squeegee and you know, stand at the side of the highway and start cleaning a sign. There are, you know, bollards you need to put around, cones and things like that for the safety aspects. But you'll be seeing people out there cleaning signs, and you know, our roads. We've challenged ourselves. We've challenged our officers to get our roads in the top 10% nationally within a few years' time, a couple of years' time. And it'll be tough, but we're on our way. Martin, yeah.
Thank you. Just to let you know,
I'll bring you in. Yeah.
Thank you. I have just had one other question on
highways.
Just
Okay.
come in. This is from Kath, who's watching on Facebook. Kath says that Sagecroft Road in Thatcham has a speeding problem. Contacted the highways as it was worse with recent roadworks on Heath Lane. The roadworks have since gone, but speeding's still a problem. She's still waiting for a call back from sort of the highways team to discuss it. So really just to say we've seen that, and I'm
going to take this. I'm going to take this head on. And the Kath, I think I know which Kath I'm talking to. We intend to ask people in Thatcham in the course of this next year, would they like roads like Sagecroft Road and all those roads off Sagecroft, the Poets Estate, and right through Thatcham, so the estate roads, if they would be happy for them to become 20 miles per hour. We've implemented this in Theale, where the people of Theale said, yes, we would want that. And so, Kath, we'll get, with people's agreement, we'll get that down to 20 miles per hour. We made what we need to do as well is look at an accident record in that road, because it's accidents that lead to urgency and priority on traffic calming. So, Kath, we've got it in our sights in a way. Thanks for raising it. I'm in Sagecroft Road quite a lot because I've got my stepdaughter in North Way. And, you know, we'll try and do some speed surveys there as well to see just what's happening. But stand by for that 20 mile per hour consultation. Thank you. That's the highways done. What's my next one up? This is for me to choose, but local government reorganisation. And just to give you background on this, because people may not have seen it, we have consulted recently on joining into a new council with the Vale of Whitehorse, so that includes Wantage, Abingdon, South Oxford District Council, so that's Henley, amongst others, Farringdon, and with West Berkshire. So why are we doing that? They came to us, those two district councils came to us and said, we'd like you to consider forming a new council with us. So we didn't go out there looking to, see if we could annex their territory. We're not trying to do that. They said, we think this could work really well. And we're putting that proposal into government by November. We've been going around doing road shows. We've had 2,000 people comment on that through consultation. We're looking to see what they think of that idea. What's the background to it? The government has said you really ought to be bigger, you councils, and ideally a West Berkshire Council, what we call a unitary authority, providing all the council services apart from parish councils, should be about 400 to 500,000 people, rather than us, who've got 170,000 people. So we quite like the idea of a Ridgeway Council. That is a working title. And we're putting a proposal in to government who will decide. It will be government who decides ultimately, does that work for them? North Oxford doing the same. So you'd have a South Oxford including West Berkshire and North Oxford including Oxford City. So it's not a done deal, but I do think we would do better for our residents in this expanded area. Let me give you an example. Would be some economies of scale with people at the top of the organisation. You wouldn't have 3 chief executives. You wouldn't have 3 directors of adult social care. In fact, it's 2 because of Oxford County Council. You'd get those economies at the top of the organisation. You'd still need probably the same amount of highways engineers, planning consultants, planning officers. You would get some economies, but probably more importantly, if we can afford a department of 1 to do an important job here, planning enforcement is only a couple of people, that becomes a single point of failure. If they're not available, then nothing can be done in those areas, those departments. But give yourself a bigger council, and maybe you've got, in my example here, 5, 6 people in planning enforcement. You've got a bit of resilience. You've got a bit of capacity. And that's the type of thing I think residents would benefit from. Yes, the workload would be bigger for those 5 or 6 people, but we are trying to bring AI to bear to help with the back office type role, work that they do. But equally, 5 or 6 planning enforcement officers, which we couldn't afford now, would then become affordable. So the first question from Diane is from Newbury. Why is West Berkshire so keen on keeping 3 of the eastern parts of West Berkshire, Calcott, Tilehurst and Purley? Well, it's always seemed odd that Reading should want these. They've never been in Reading. They were dating back to 1894. They came together with Newbury under Bradfield Rural District Council. They've never been part of the Reading Borough, and I don't believe they ever should. And I don't think that the people, of all the people I've spoken to in that area, and I speak to the parish councils, and I have people emailing me saying, no, we do not want to be part of Reading. We don't believe their services are as good. Our roads are better, our schools are better. There's a lot that's better in West Berkshire. And so the people at Tilehurst, what I say to them, Tilehurst, Calcott, Holybrook, Pangbourne, Thiel, we do care what happens in your area. We work hard. We've only just recently opened a new 3G pitch facility at the Cotswold Sports Centre in the Tilehurst, Calcott area for those residents there. We do care. I've been over to parish councils over there and talked to them about what they need. What can we do for them? We're looking out for them. We have a better recycling system than them. I know we're coming on to waste later, and we have lower council tax. We've got better schools. I don't believe that this would be better for those people in those areas, and I'm not very happy with Reading wanting to do this. Nobody has asked them to. The government did not come to them and say, would you like to look at your boundaries? This is opportunistic and unwelcome, frankly. So I say to those people who want to stay with West Berkshire, we want you to, and we're going to fight hard to make sure you do. And if you make your voice felt, that will go up to government to say, leave us alone. We like being in the West Berkshire and then maybe in the Ridgeway area in the future. Then Chris in Calcott, would it have been better to have integrated with Reading to form a greater Reading authority at the time that Berkshire County Council was dissolved and West Berkshire was established? Especially since he talks about West Berkshire needing all of our absorbed parishes to succeed. And he talks about a rush of people want to break away and join Reading. I'm not seeing that rush of people, Chris, not at all. I'm seeing a rush of people saying, please don't let Reading take us over. Your point about would Reading, would have been better to form a greater Reading authority when Berkshire County Council was dissolved. Well, I was there. I was the leader of Berkshire County Council when it was dissolved. And a lot of the ambition was about Reading wishing to become a city and Reading wishing to make its own decisions, which it clearly can now. So they were driving then for independence. They're driving now for this greater Reading area. They haven't yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if they look at Early and Woodley and say they ought to be in Reading as well. It's all to do, it seems to me, with an ambition of Reading to become a city. And I'm not going to stand by and frankly offer up our residents into that area. Next question, anonymous question, is the Ridgeway Council plan a done deal regardless of public consultation? No, I haven't looked at the consultation results yet. We think from the conversation we've had with people that people will rather like it. It's interesting, people in the South Oxford and the Vale are saying, oh, it'd be great to get back to Berkshire because they were part of Berkshire before 1974. And some people remember that fondly. But no, it's not a done deal. And in fact, any deal will be agreed with the government. Angela Rayner, in her department, Ministry of Housing, Local Government and Communities, will turn around and say, does she think that's the right answer for West Berkshire, Vale of Whitehorse, South Oxford and the rest of Oxford? And that'll be February, March, April next year. So not a done deal. And then Paula in Newbury, the submission to the ministry of a proposal to form new Ridgeway Council has been included in 2 of the 3 options. However, the recent engagement have only concentrated on 1. why did I discount the 3 council option? Well, the 3 council is not up to us. We've been invited by the Vale and South Oxford to put in a submission with them. And where the money is coming from, we're trying to keep it very economic. I'm not going to start talking about how we're struggling to, balance our budget, but I will need to come onto it a little bit later. But the government has been clear that council should support only one proposal. And we believe we're supporting the proposal that best meets the government criteria. Now, the government has allocated £7.6 million to councils, and the proposal for Oxfordshire, this would equate to about £285,000. So we divide that equally to the 3 proposals in Oxfordshire, and we get some inward money, and that helps defray the cost. But what I will say also is, I think we're delivering good services, and our officers are doing this as well. They're finding time to do this, and I'm really grateful to them for doing it. I think our officers are really quite keen on the idea, so they're putting themselves out to support this without extra cost, and I'm very grateful to them. That sort of covers the local government review side. Martin, what have I got?
Yeah, happy. Some questions and comments and conversation going on online. I can see we've got Peter Dempsey says only advantage of merging councils is we might get better value for money. I don't know what you want to say about that.
Well, you get these economies of scale, and therefore you pounds stretch further. So yes, there is strength in numbers. You can be too big, and then you get distant from the population. You get remote. But I do agree. I think there is a value for money benefit of it. It's got to be the right size. I think the Berkshire Unitaries, and I said it in 1998, I'm on record as saying it, would be too small. They've done very, very well. But there's strength in numbers, Peter. Thank you.
Very good. So some conversation sort of on the pros and cons of it. But yeah, just somebody asking whether people in Cowcott and over on the east of the district should be given a referendum on whether they're part of Ridgeway or Reading.
Well, in a way that may very well happen, because this would be a boundary review. And in a boundary review, it's perfectly appropriate and part of legislation, I believe, that there would be a consultation and everybody would be invited, probably by letter, individually, to say what they believe. So I don't know if it's a full referendum, but it certainly would go door to door, and that would be part of the process. So I hope that gives some comfort to those people who really don't like the idea. This is far from over. Okay. So that's me local government reorganisation, and now I'm going to get on to questions on waste. Quite a few of them. And try and take them head on, as I'm trying to do with just about all of these things. And Matt in Thatcham says, how can you justify going against the residents with changing the bin collections from 2 weeks to 3 weeks, knowing the people of West Berkshire do not want this? Yeah. The consultation, yes, people have said they would rather we didn't do it. Matt also says he believes it will be unsanitary, and I'm going to pick that up in my answer as well. Now, at the moment, and there's what we call a bin hanger on one of your bins this week and last week. 42% of the waste currently placed in black bins could be recycled at the curbside using services we already provide and you pay for, and we pay for. So we collect plastic bottles, but 1.5% of your black bin waste is plastic bottles. We collect glass bottles and jars. 2% goes in the black bin. We collect paper. 3% of your black bin is paper. We collect cardboard if you put it out with your paper. 3% in the black bin is cardboard. But and 1.5% is tins and cans. But the biggest one to me is that over 20%, 21.5% of black bins contain food waste. So at the moment, that can, well, not at the moment, that can be collected through the food caddy on a weekly basis, getting that putrescible waste, getting that unsanitary stuff, getting that smelly stuff out and away every week. But 42% of the black bin waste is food, which probably is pretty stinky anyway after 2 weeks. Don't put it in the black bin. A lot of the time, we're emptying air. The black bin, third full, half full, people, by recycling in the way we've done it, we've added plastic trays, plastic pots, batteries. We're collecting a lot more at the curbside in order to drive down what's in the black bin. So if we can get that done, and this is, I will say, this is, yes, hopefully nudging people to do that, because the black bin is coming every 3 weeks, then I think that will be good for the planet, good for our recycling, good for our carbon neutrality, a good practice across the district. Now, obviously, the thing to bear in mind also is we're not the first people, council, to do this, to go to 3 weekly black bins. Bracknell Forest have been doing this for some time. I think Wokingham might have as well. And it's settled in quite nicely. And the recycling rates are going up. Ours are about 51%, 52%. We need to get that up to 60% minimum. Their recycling bins their recycling rates are going up. And that's where we need to be. 48% of residents told us they still had space in their black bin on collection day. That was before we even started collecting plastic pots, tubs and trays. So many households already seem to be able to do it. The other thing to remember is, I think there's about 14,000 flats and apartments in our district. They are not affected. Their refuse waste will be collected as normal. So yes, we know it will be a change. We know there is disquiet about it. We're not pioneering it. We watch carefully where it's happened in other areas. And I really feel that it will settle in as it has done in those other areas, and with the benefit of greater recycling. We continue to do our fortnightly recycling collections. I put paper and bottles out yesterday. We are helping people to deal with waste from nappies and assisting residents with medical needs. We will be there ready to help, double bagging items, tying bags securely, using dog and litter bins across the district when out walking, and consider using a small sealable bin in your garden for bagged dog waste, that type of thing. Practical steps that households can already do successfully. So no, won't be immediately popular. I understand that. There is a saving. And believe me, I will come on to finances a little bit now. It's really tough to balance our budget. It really is. And the reason for that is things that don't affect the majority of people in our district. People are living longer, getting older, needing care, needing to go into care homes, unable to pay for that. The council helps them do so. We try and keep people at home as long as possible. We spend a lot of time in what we call reablement, helping people come out of hospital. We provide those services so people can live independent lives as long as they can. That's expensive and going up because the population is getting older. Then we do have a bit of a legacy, I believe, from COVID, where children have not got over it, and how it impacted them. And there's a lot of what we call special educational needs being assessed for children who need extra education, extra support. That needs to be given to them. Another very big call on our finances, not just ours. It's happening in councils up and down the country. So those two that pincer movement of demand in those areas is straining our budget. If you have children, you may know of this. If you have elderly relatives, you may know of this. If you don't, you may not know of those pressures on our budget that we're working and achieving good results in. But every year, 64 pence in the pound goes on those areas. So our ability outside of that gets stretched. And yes, there is a saving. It's we're anticipating about £160,000 in this year, but that's not the full year. And that will be used wisely to help people who are often in a lot of distress. So that's where we are with it. And I'm looking at questions from Gary, from Simon in Lambourne, Gary in Newbury. I'm trying to answer a bunch of questions here. I'm picking up what people are talking about, and I hope I've answered. There's several: Simon in Thatcham, Glenn in Beanham, and then are we ignoring the consultation? We know that we knew there would be disquiet. We didn't expect people to come and say yes, great, do it. But on balance, we thought that it was the right thing for this area. And one of the important reasons, as I said, 42% of the waste currently placed in back bins can be recycled. 52% said they might be able to cope if adequate support measures were in place. And we're providing additional capacity for larger households, support for families with children in nappies, as I said, assistance for residents with medical needs. I think our bin's also bigger than Reading's. Martin, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but another reason why people should be in our council, not in Reading's. So that's the black bins. Then there is the one on green bins. So if you give me a moment just to scroll down to that particular one, but I can answer it off the cuff as well, but I've got a few notes to guide me as well. We were conscious that we wanted to reduce the access cost to a green bin and reduce the actual cost of it to households in bands A to C, so they pay less than last year. People who are in smaller households, not paying as much council tax, perhaps not being able to afford as much, and therefore we reduce the charge. In Band D, households didn't see any change. There's a lot of households in Band D. But in households with bands E to H, we have asked them to pay more. They're paying up to £75, comparable with Reading, South Oxfordshire. In Windsor and Maidenhead, it's 88, and in Wokingham, it's £90. Now, okay, you could say to me, well, you don't live in Wokingham, what's the relevance of that? It is an important income for us. I'll make no bones about that. But we also believe that this is a fair way of doing it. And in fact, what it meant was over 55% of people paid less for their green bin. So overall, trying to get this balance between income, recycling, the right charge, we've done our very best to try and achieve that. I've then got another one that is, and then I'll look online, Martin may help me if there's some come in. Tony in Tilehurst says, why do we no longer care about the place? We really do care about the place and where you live, Tony. But his point is about allowing graffiti and rubbish to gather around schools in Long Lane. So, Tony, this is important. And again, I'm going to the draft answer just to remind myself. We do carry out regular litter picking and street cleaning. We do that along over 1,300 kilometres of public highway, 827 kilometres of public footways. We're a big area. Now, when standards fall, we're responsible. We need to take action to address it. We haven't had any recent reports of littering in Long Lane, and maybe we need more of a G up on that. But our officers will inspect the area now, and any necessary work will be scheduled and carried out. We're grateful to the local community group that undertook a litter pick in Long Lane in May. We collected the bag waste following their efforts. Really appreciative of that contribution. And it is parishes often doing that sort of thing that really helps the overall tidiness and neatness of an area. Now, regarding graffiti, our most recent surveys show that levels across West Berkshire are lower than the national average. That isn't a great help to you when you see it where you are, but we don't generally have a high graffiti record here, which is good to see. Responsibility for removing graffiti does lie with the property owner. If it's one of our properties, we need to get it removed. If you see it on a private property, though, the owner should be trying to, get it down. If it's offensive or suspected to be gang related or something like that, it should be reported to Thames Valley Police. And we work practically with schools to promote responsible behaviour. We've got a waste minimisation officer who regularly visits schools to deliver educational sessions, mostly recently at Little Heath School Eco Day. And we're always looking for ways to improve and welcome suggestions. And if you have any specific locations or incidents you'd like to look into, please do let us know. Now, I say that was from Tony in Tilehurst. And Tony, we do care. We will get inspections along there. Keep phoning it in, sir, and we will keep responding. We will not neglect any area where we know we've got to do some work. Now, Martin, has anything come in while we've been talking on this waste?
Lots of questions and comments on the bins, and we'll certainly take all of those on board. I've got a few here. We've got Peter who's asking why we didn't hang bin hangers on all of the bins to notify people about the consultation, rather than hoping people wouldn't notice. So a question about how widely we consulted on the bin changes.
Never sure. There will always be ways you didn't think of or considered after the event. I think it's a rather good point, but we must think of that sort of thing in future.
We've got Plastic Free at Mortimer, who's sort of picking up on the point around sort of what other councils do, asking how we came up with the idea of using where we live as a way to judge ability to pay, and querying whether that's fair. I'm
trying to understand that. Why is Mortimer different from? Is this on green bins?
You're talking about, so you were comparing how we are in West Berkshire with the other authorities.
Well, the council has to make decisions. I compare them on a lot of occasions, and if they're doing better than us, I look to see, can we actually use what they're doing to improve our area. So I think it is worthwhile looking at other areas and neighbours as a comparison. Wokingham is quite a good one, I think. It's similar to us. Reading, not so, because it's so urban, but I sort of take your point, but I hope you take mine.
Very good. And we've had some other questions, sort of comments from Meg and others who I think have already been sort of asking about sort of listening to the results of the consultation, which I think you probably covered earlier in the session. And I think what I also add is that we're going to be organising a separate waste and recycling question and answer session in a week or two's time, that we can cover some of these questions and comments in a bit more detail. We appreciate there's a lot of interest in these.
Great to see you. So, lots of public engagement to come on this. I think we've now got about 10 minutes left, and we've got a bunch of questions that didn't fit into a category. So we call them the others, and I think I've got them somewhere. Okay. And the first one up from Richard in Thatcham. An update on the future of adult social care services in West Berkshire. What is the plan for residential provision for those with serious needs? And what is the latest on plans for day service provision? Very good questions. People are concerned about it. And what I can say to you, Richard, is that there are reasons why we struggle to run a care home as on the same sort of financial model as a private provider. It seems more expensive when we run it. Part of that is employee costs are higher. You'll know this in terms of local government pension scheme and other add-on emoluments to the salary. Part of it is that. So we felt the private sector, if they wished to pick up those two homes, Birchwood and Willow's Edge, would run them as well, because there'll be service level agreements we would expect, but financially better. Now that is still a work in progress. We're still marketing them. We're also at the same time getting some consultancy expertise to take a look at how we run them, to see if there are any quick wins on economies without affecting the quality of care to the resident of the care home. So no decisions made, Richard. Similarly, on the resource centres, no decisions made. Only last week, I saw a report. It said that in some areas, we certainly could provide the services via the voluntary sector. I said, and it was a summary. I said, I'm not happy with the summary. I want to see each individual case without the name of the individual, the service they're taking, and where they would go, which is several pages of data, but I wanted to see it. I wanted to see the work of being done. So, and we're taking our time on this. We're not rushing to do it. But again, I've said in the chamber, it's quite a big sum of money potentially to save. On the care homes, it could be as much as £2 million a year. And on the resource centres, it could be nearly £500,000. These are not small amounts of money. So we have to take it seriously. It's your money. We've got to use it wisely, value for money again. So we have to look at these things. Next one up is the £700,000 per month redacted payments in the council payment list from Simon and Thatcham. And a little bit technical this, so I'm going to read it out. The Local Government Association's transparency guidance references sensitive and personal information in that any personal information that identifies an individual or data that could lead to harm to an individual is excluded from publication. So that can include amounts paid in relation to children or vulnerable adults, including foster carers, home carers, any benefits payments, personal refunds. So the sums referenced will relate to children's and adult social care costs, and they're redacted under that guidance. And I think that makes sense. Next one up, anonymous, but good question. What are the highest earning position in the council workforce? And would it not have been easier to remove some of these positions instead of cutting bin collections? Well, on page 30, note 30 on page 70 of our financial statements, it's on the website, you can go and see it anytime, provides a comprehensive list of senior manager posts and salaries. Now, we have 1,500 people in our organisation. We spend about £230 million a year, £185 million on the day-to-day running costs, and about 45 million on capital projects like new school buildings. That's a big cohort of people doing a lot of things. There's over 700 services that we provide across the council. You need management, effective management, to oversee that, drive it, and deliver those services. We've recruited, since we've been in power just over 2 years, of our top 15 positions, we recruited 10 new people into those positions. So we've been busy getting that management team at the top. You've got 5 at the top, and you've got 10 under them, to get the right people in the right place to do great work for you. And so I think we've got the right balance. So 15 people managing 1,500 doesn't sound too bad to me. You've got to look at your management layers below that, of course. But when you talk about the highest earning positions, I believe they really do work hard to, give you the services you deserve and earn their money. Another one, anonymous, 5 minutes left. Council tax keeps rising, services are being cut to the bone. I don't agree with that. Yes, there has been over many years cutbacks to services, efficiencies, and that's been a squeeze. over the last 20 odd years, the government grants, which we used to get as a standard, has virtually disappeared. We'd get many millions of pounds from government directly, and we get very little now. We have to bid for extra money. Most of the money we spend is raised by council tax or some income. Obviously, car parks are part of that. But we don't get much in the way of government income through grants. And if I said to you that we collect on behalf of the government about £90 million a year in business rates and get to keep about 22, 23 million of it, the rest the government disperses to other areas. And I won't argue about how they disperse it. There will be areas that need it, but these are things people don't really know of, are aware of. And so it's a long-winded way of saying to this questioner, I don't believe we're cutting them to the bone. I really don't. Yes, council tax keeps rising. Demand keeps rising. Demand is rising all the time, as I explained earlier. What are you paying for? I think you're paying for good services, and we'll look at your roads, which everybody uses. The schools are in tremendously good shape. We are about to announce just how many schools are good or better in their rating. That'll be coming out quite shortly, I believe. And honestly, our schools are in great condition, great shape in terms of the quality of the education they're providing. So I don't accept the broad point, sir, but I do hope I've given some indication of how we're, managing to cope with a financial picture that gets worse and worse. I think this will be the final one. It's from Peter in Calcott, and he's talking about China produces the majority of solar panels in the world, uses a lot of slave/forced labour. We'll be spending £18 million to put solar panels on farmland in Graiseley. Well, we acknowledge the important issue raised. We're aware of the risks, put in place clauses, stipulations, making it clear in our tender documentation, any contractor who award the delivery of the solar farm to must have strict anti-slavery and human trafficking provisions. And that's all to comply with the Modern Slavery Act of 2015. It's also made clear in our spec that we have a strict policy position on anti-slavery, and we seek details of a contractor's supply chain and any partners they work with. So we're confident we have in place the necessary safeguards to ensure our project will comply with anti-slavery and human trafficking laws and policies. Martin, coming to you with a couple of minutes left, is there anything burning on the chat or the people coming in?
Yes, you just had one other question from Charlie on Facebook. A bit different. Charlie saying, good feedback here for the Corn Exchange in Newbury. Charlie saying the Corn Exchange is putting on a great band tonight, raising money for charity, and is asking what plans we have to support the rising music scene in Newbury.
Well, as a point in question, if you know the old library, it's Carnegie Building, and it's being re-provided for local arts, performing arts, music, and also exhibitions. And we've taken £100,000 of what we call SIL, which is Community Infrastructure Levy, that developers give us that when they build estates and developments, buildings. And we provided £100,000 of that money to the Corn Exchange, who are going to be running that in tandem with the Corn Exchange. And I'd like to think that music will be helped there. That's the one I can think of at the moment. There will be others, but watch out for that opening. That'll be a really, really nice event building. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so grateful for you coming in with these questions. I'm sure there will be some of you who might be somewhat disappointed with the answers. I don't come on here to disappoint people. I didn't become a counsellor to disappoint people. Leading, unfortunately, though, is about making choices, and some of them are very tough. Overall, we're doing everything we can, and please come in and ask questions at any time. You don't have to wait for a session like this, and I wish you a very good evening, the rest of it, and thank you for attending.